I'd like to give a fairly short, fairly formal semi-lecture followed by an interesting discussion about ecumenism. If we are to witness to the world, the problem is not only in the world, the problem is in us. And the problem in us is not just that we are wicked and foolish. That's always the case. We are also split. We're divided. We can ignore that. We can be dishonest and compromise our convictions, but obviously that's not going to do any good. Is there any hope for reunion? I am increasingly convinced that there is much more hope than most of us think. And my hope is based most fundamentally on the fact that the most passionate ecumenist in all of existence is Jesus Christ. We all know his prayer to his Father just before his crucifixion in John 17, that they may be one, even as thou, Father, art in me and I in thee, that they also may be in us, so that the world may believe. He explicitly connects apologetics and ecumenism. I in them and thou in me, that they may become perfectly one, so that the world may know that thou hast sent me and hast loved them, even as thou hast loved me. If you read the first 3 chapters of 1 Corinthians, you will see that denominationalism was not just a scandal, but absolutely unthinkable and intolerable to St. Paul. Because denominationalism is not the multiplying of subdivisions in an organization, it's the amputation of limbs from an organism. Just as no sane person loves war, so no sane Christian loves the war among Christians that so scandalizes the world and weakens our witness to it. How could a divided church unify a divided world? No more than an infected physician could heal himself. But our divisions seem as intractable as war. Here are 9 grounds for hope for ecumenical reunion that are commonly given. Not one of them has worked. Number 1, reasonable compromises. Number 2, understanding, education. The hope that deep down we'll find that we don't really disagree. That we're all saying the same thing in different words, but just misunderstanding each other. 3, mystical experience. If you only have one, you'll see that the previous point is true. 4, tolerance, like a mutual non-aggression pact. Why can't we just get along? 5, subjectivism, reduction of the truth to my truth, or your truth, or our truth. 6, skepticism. No one knows the truth anyway. 7, rational argument. Perhaps we can persuade each other as in a scientific laboratory. 8, a vague optimism. Dickens' Mr. Micawber's. Something will turn up. 9, merely a temporary tactical and pragmatic union to fight a common enemy, an ecumenical jihad. Good, but not enough. None of these is the golden key to reunion. There is a golden key. His name is Jesus Christ. We can't do it. And he can. We must be very clear about those 2 truths. The main reason it hasn't happened is that we do not fully believe both those 2 truths. Christ himself is the most powerful source of reunion in the world because it comes not from the world, but from heaven. And he will have his way with us sooner or later, one way or another. We don't know whether it's going to be sooner or later, and we don't know whether it will come by one way or by another, but we do know that it will come because it is his will. We don't know when and we don't know how, but we know who. Pope John Paul II has voiced the bold hope that as the first 1,000 years of Christian history were the millennium of Christian unity, and the second 1,000 years were the millennium of Christian disunity, 1054, 1517, and the over 20,000 denominations that came from 1517. So the third 1,000 years may be the millennium of Christian reunity, reunification. But how? The deepest division is obviously between Catholics and Protestants. For the Eastern Orthodox churches have all remained one, not split into 20,000 in creed, code, or cult. They have preserved the fullness of the Catholic faith, except for universal papal authority, but that has changed its form quite a bit throughout Christian history, though not its reality, and it can change again. The Pope himself explicitly said that in Ut Unum Sint. But how can Catholics and Protestants achieve reunion? I will prescind entirely from the question whether Anglicans are Catholics, Protestants, both, or neither. Well, it cannot be by yielding or weakening or compromising one iota of divinely revealed truth. All the serious differences between Protestants and Catholics concern how much territory this category of divinely revealed truth covers. For instance, the Church's doctrines about Mary and the saints and the seven sacraments and transubstantiation and purgatory, Catholics accept them because they believe they are true and divinely revealed. Protestants reject them because they believe they are not true and not divinely revealed. Protestants say Catholics believe too much. Catholics say Protestants believe too little. Protestants say the Church added to Christ's original pure and simple revelation in the New Testament. Protestantism, thus, is Catholicism stripped down. The Catholic ark with what Protestants claim are the non-scriptural barnacles scraped off of it. When I was at Calvin College and investigating things Catholic, and falling in love with them and feeling guilty about it because this was the wrong church, I took a course in church history to try to get things clear. And the very first day of the course, the wise old professor said, "What is the church?" And we were all just freshmen. We didn't know for nothing, so nobody answered. So he said, "Well, you're going to meet a Roman Catholic someday, and he's going to say to you, you're in the wrong church. You're a Calvinist. You're in the church John Calvin founded 500 years ago. We're in the church Jesus Christ founded 2,000 years ago. What do you say to him?" Nobody had an answer. I said to myself, I'm in the right class. He said, "Well, here's what the Catholic will say. The church today is a great big thing, and it looks very different than the simple thing you read about in the New Testament, but it's the same church, just as that oak tree is the same organism as that little acorn." What's wrong with that picture? The Catholic will say that Luther and Calvin broke off some branches of the church because it was really rotten, and they tried to start a new one, but that can't be done because there's only one Jesus, therefore only one church. What's your answer to that? What's wrong with that picture? And nobody had an answer. I said to myself, I'm in the right class. And he said, well, here's what's wrong with that picture. Here's what happened. Jesus founded one church, indeed, and it is the church described in the New Testament. And it's like Noah's Ark, and it did get rotten. And Luther and Calvin and Knox and others said, gee, this ark is sinking. We got to scrape the barnacles off. So they scraped the barnacles off and restored it to its simple, pure, primitive New Testament essence. So we're in the right church. It's the Catholics who are the upstarts. They're the ones who add all these pagan barnacles. I said, oh, that makes me feel good. I remember asking a question. I said, Professor, do you mean to tell me that if my Catholic neighbor and I both found a time machine and went back to the first century, I still remember his look. What's this guy, a weirdo, science fiction? And worshiped together, that I as a Protestant would feel more at home in that church than he as a Catholic would? And then he smiled. He says, that's exactly what I'm saying. I said to myself, good. That means that I don't have to be a great theologian to figure out who's right. All I have to do is read the Church Fathers to prove to myself that they're all Calvinists. Well, I read the Church Fathers and I proved to myself that they're all Catholics. So that's why I'm here. But the very word Protestant means protesting, refusing some of the Catholic whole, because they think it's anti-scriptural and unscriptural barnacles added to what Christ gave us. Well, the very word Catholic means universal, or whole, the whole deal. So this is a problem apparently without a possible solution, because no faithful Catholic could dream of unity with Protestants except on Catholic grounds. For to be a Catholic is to believe that those grounds are holy grounds, divinely revealed. It is the Protestants who must remove their shoes. Catholics cannot negotiate away any of the deposit of faith because it is not theirs, it is Christ's. The divinely appointed mail carriers may not edit God's mail. So the reunion must be on Catholic grounds, that is, complete, universal grounds. That is the essentially and distinctively Catholic point, the central Catholic point, and it is non-negotiable for any faithful Catholic. But at the same time, reunion must be on Protestant grounds, and these are equally non-negotiable. What I mean by that is that the essentially and distinctively Protestant point, the central Protestant point, seems to be the opposite of the Catholic one, namely the simple all-sufficiency of Christ alone. Jesus only. Jesus plus nothing. Jesus straight, not mixed drink. If reunion is possible, that is its only foundation. The Church's one foundation is Jesus Christ, her Lord. Now, of course, that doesn't have to mean, and it shouldn't mean, no creed but Christ, or Jesus only and therefore no church, or Jesus only and therefore no sacraments, for most Protestants do have a creed and a church and sacraments. So perhaps those two central points already overlap a bit, or more than a bit. In fact, they overlap so much that we can say, without trickery, that the whole reason for being a Catholic is to be the best possible evangelical Protestant. What I mean by that strange statement is that the essence of evangelical Protestantism is to be one with Christ, to meet Christ, and that's the best reason to be a Catholic. That's the reason for the Mass and the Eucharist, namely the Protestant thing of meeting Christ. That's the whole point of the Catholic thing of the Church and the sacraments and the saints and all the rest. Take the Eucharist. Christ is not great because of the Eucharist. The Eucharist is great because of Christ. We Catholics don't try to squeeze Christ out of the Church like orange juice out of an orange. Christ gave us the Church. We got the Church from Christ, first of all. Only then do we get Christ from the Church because he put himself into her. The Church is the servant, the messenger. The Church is Christ's body, but the body is the head's body. We don't idolize anything. Protestants accuse Catholics of idolatry, ecclesiolatry, sacramentology, Mariolatry. Christ is the only idol, the total idola, or icon, or image of God. We do not idolize, for instance, the doctrine of the real presence. It's only a doctrine, though it's a true doctrine. We worship Christ, not doctrines about Christ. The real presence is the real presence of Christ. Christ alone is the absolute everywhere in Catholicism. Mary, for instance, is holy only because of her relationship to Christ. She gave us him by freely consenting to be his mother, and he gave us her from the cross. Behold your mother. But reunion without compromise between Catholics and Protestants still seems impossible. Yet here's a surprising clue that it may be possible after all. The main point of what I said in the last few minutes, Jesus only, the all-sufficiency of Christ, that's the essential Protestant point. And it was just made by me, a Catholic. That point seems to be the essential dividing point For Catholicism seems to Protestants to violate that point. Catholicism seems to Protestants to be Christ plus paganism, the ark plus the barnacles, or Christ plus many human traditions and historical accretions, Christ plus the Pope, Christ plus Mary, whatever. The most serious Protestant objection to Catholicism as a religion, not just as a theology, is that it violates the scriptural teaching of the all-sufficiency of Christ, the teaching that there is one mediator between God and man, the man Christ Jesus. To Protestants, Catholicism seems to add other intermediaries between man and Christ, Mary, the saints, the church, sacraments, priests, human traditions. But I suggest that if Protestants make just one single adjustment in their vision, they will see the possibility of reunion, not just theologically, but more deeply religiously and spiritually, without any compromise at all. And that one adjustment is not to see Christ in any different way at all, but to see the church in a different way. Not as an obstacle between us and Christ, not even as an intermediary between us and Christ, but as the very body of Christ himself. And why would they make that adjustment? Well, which of these two concepts of the church is the scriptural way of seeing it? Come on, answer honestly. You read the Bible, and isn't the Bible the supreme authority for any good Protestant? Once Protestants see the church's identity, they can love her instead of fearing her, because the body of Christ is Christ, as your body is you. It's not an alien. It's not an obstacle. How could your own body be an obstacle? How Gnostic. The body's not your prison house or your coffin or your punishment. It's not even your tool or your clothing or your house. It's not this old house. It's you. Although it's not the whole you. It's not your head or your soul. Well, the same is true of Christ's body, which is what the New Testament calls the church. It is Christ, though it's not the whole Christ. He is her head, and the Holy Spirit is her soul. Protestants will not and should not stop protesting against the Catholic Church until they see the totally Christocentric character of her and of all her teachings. Sometimes the understanding of the Church's Christocentrism can be the key to the understanding of the Christocentric nature of each of the Church's teachings. And sometimes it works the other way around, doctrine by doctrine, yielding its Christocentric treasure at its heart as it is more deeply explored and understood, as Christ the teacher appears at the heart of each of the Church's teachings. I know a number of Protestants who have read the Church's New Catechism and been amazed at how consistently Christocentric everything in it is. And unless Protestants see this, how could they think of reunion with Catholics? And how can they see this unless Catholics show it to them? And how can Catholics show it to them unless they see it themselves? And how can they see it unless they have a teacher, a preacher? As it is written, how beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of them that preach the good news. In this light, it seems to me clearly providential that God has raised up for our time, the time of the end of the second millennium, the millennium of Christian disunity, and the beginning of the third millennium, hopefully the millennium of Christian reunity, has raised up John Paul the Great, the most Christocentric pope of modern times, probably of all times, the most ecumenical pope of all times, and yet one who is totally, traditionally, and enthusiastically Catholic. Is the Pope Catholic? There have been times in the Church's dark history when that joke was not funny. Today it's funny.